Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Microsoft Flight Simulator, and in this episode I'm going to show you guys how to map your controls like a boss. Now we are going to be using Spad.Next as today's examples, but remember there are other softwares out there such as X's and O's that will do the same thing. So stick around guys, because you're going to learn a lot, and we're going to dive a bit deeper than you've probably ever gone on the general basis on how to find control bindings that you can use for your simulator. Stick around. If you are interested in acquiring any of my Overkills tutorial guides from Microsoft Flight Simulator, or simply interested in supporting the channel, please consider joining us on Patreon. Patreon subscribers level tier 2 and above have access to all of my guides, as well as any future releases that come down the road. Patreon link can be found in the description below. All right, guys, real quick, I do want to hit on something, a couple of things as we get going. Please don't skip this part. I'll try to make it brief. First off, there will be chapters down below to each individual section that I can break it up. We're going to do basic switches, basic mapping, axis mappings, advanced axis mappings, and we'll talk about what that is, as well as LVARs and even A events, which I just learned about myself yesterday. So there's going to be a lot in this video. It is going to be a bit of a longer video, but I'm going to make sure to put chapters down below so you guys can skip to the part that's relevant to what you're looking for. We're also going to be doing things like the trim wheel. Believe it or not, the trim wheel actually can be more complex than you think, and you have much more option than you think. And we're also going to do electronic trim, which again, you can actually tweak it based on how you want to use it. And we'll talk about more of those things. So make sure that you guys stick around, because there's going to be a lot of useful information in this video. The last thing that I want to talk about real quick, guys, in my last Spad.Next video, there was a lot of hate that came across in regard to Spad and their support team and some of the things that people have experienced and the way some people have been treated. I have seen some of that from certain users over on their Discord. I have seen some of the rudeness. I do agree it exists, but I want you guys to understand that this video is not sponsored. As a matter of fact, I just renewed my own Spad.Next subscription last week. So I am just like you guys. Got it the same way you guys do. I've been using it for years and years. Yes, I have noticed some of the things that people were talking about. But for me, it's all about enjoyment of the simulator and what I am comfortable with and what I've been using for a while. So please, if you guys do have any of those comments, please, if you're going to post them, just keep it professional, guys, so you can state your opinion without getting nasty with it. I do ask that you guys please just refrain from hate comments in the links or in the channel below, the video below, whatever. You're welcome to express displeasure and your opinions, but just keep it reasonable, folks, please. I do ask that, please. Anything that is blatantly hateful, insulting, etc., I will be removing, because I just don't. There's enough negativity in the world, guys. There really is. Anyway, so that's it. That was the quick disclaimer. Now let's get into the fun part. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go through everything step by step. So we're going to go into Spad. I'm going to create a new profile. I'm going to show you guys how to start binding things. We're going to start with our axis controls, getting the basics out of the way, and then move on over into some of the more buttons and switches, and then we'll get into some of the more advanced stuff as we move forward. So stick around, guys. All right, so first up, you guys are going to see some goofy behavior. OBS's latest release has made it really difficult to do a display capture on the right monitor. It seems to always pick the opposite of the one that I want, and there isn't any way to change it. It just keeps, no matter which one you select, it's picking the same monitor. So you guys are going to see some OBS action up on the screen. It's going to be a little chunky as I bounce between the two locations. I do apologize for that. Bear with me. So the first thing that I want you guys to be aware of, and I don't know that all aircraft have it yet. I haven't dived in that deep. The TBM 850 is the first one where I'm really getting down into the nitty gritty. But I wanted to show you guys something really cool in the 850 directory if you decide to follow in suit with me. It is in the... So go into wherever you have your aircraft installed. This is my add-ons folder. So I use... add-ons linker to install my aircraft. So, but it's in the black square. So if you just installed it by default, it's in the community folder. It's going to be community, black square, TBM 850, sim objects, airplanes, black square aircraft, TBM 850 model. And this guy right here will give you this screen. And I did not set this to dark mode. The green and black thing, I think, is just the way the Edge opened it. I don't know why. You know what I could actually try doing real quick as I'm thinking about it? Let me see if I can open this in Notepad. There we go. That's what I wanted. Okay, so this file is really cool. We're going to be using this stuff a lot. You can see it's got the LVARs, LVAR black square. So these are going to be LVARs that are LVARs are a different way of executing commands, which we're going to talk about later on. But I wanted to show you guys this particular page because it shows how to bind just about everything you want. So, for example, use native bindings. That means you're going to use, for example, landing light switch. You're going to use what is inside of Microsoft Flight Simulator where it says landing lights. Okay, but when we get into things like this here, that's a different process, and things here is where it's going to get really cool, where it says LVARs. LVARs are a ton of fun to mess around with. You can do a lot with them, and this is why I recommend something like X's and O's or versus Spad.Next, because it really gives you the ability. All of these LVARs and stuff like that, you can't bind within Microsoft Flight Simulator. Anything that says LVAR here, we cannot bind inside the Microsoft Flight Simulator GUI. We have to use something third party. And that is the advantage of these. Even output, guys. So these outputs, this is if you wanted to create your own gauges. You could use these to actually have your own readouts on a touchscreen monitor or something, for example, like, oh gosh, why can't I think of it? There's a software out there that will allow you to create a digital touchscreen cockpit, and I can't think of the damn name of it. I own it too, and I can't think of the name of it, but anyway, I digress. So this is just some of the cool stuff that's right here. Once you get down into here, you stay out of it, guys. We're up here. This is where we want to be. This is all we're interested in for today. Again, I'm not sure if all of these aircraft have this file. It looks like it's probably something that's required, but this is really slick. And you can see here it's even attention cockpit builders. So this is pretty awesome. And I imagine as time goes on and they continue to update it and create more, we'll be able to use that. But there's a lot here. All right, so I wanted you guys to see that. Let's go ahead and move into the actual programming now. All right, so getting into SPAD, I already have a base profile that I use to sort of mirror everything off of, but for this particular aircraft, and I'll do the same thing with the PC-12 when it's time for me to do that as well, I'm going to create something completely new. So we're going to go brand new profile, TBM 850. And the other thing that I really like about, like, for example, Spad.Next here is as I change aircraft. So this is for like my Cessna 172, the M20 Mooney. As I switch to these different aircraft inside the sim, the profile will automatically switch as well, as long as I have the aircraft assigned to it. So you don't ever have to worry about changing your profiles, manually selecting something different, unless there's a specific reason why you're doing that. Once it's assigned, the software will automatically change aircraft for you. So that's another really great advantage to this. All right, so now let's go talk about devices. These are all the devices that I currently have in use. I have the Wind Wing takeoff panel, which we're going to be using very heavily today. The combat ready panel, again, we're going to be using a lot of that today. We're going to be using the flight sim or the VPC stick. Let me just turn that off for a minute. And we're also going to be using the VPC throttle. And we'll also touch on the Gear Falcon trim wheel. I don't know where all these buttons come from. None of these buttons actually exist on the darn thing. So that's kind of weird. And we're not going to worry about the 530 today because that's a whole different thing. But that's all the things that we're going to mess with today. We're going to be being on these two. We're going to be here a lot today. So let's begin. And how I'm going to start this sort of is we're going to start out with just some of the simple stuff, right? Lights is where we'll begin here. So let's go up to the lights here. And I know you guys can't see the sim yet. That's intentional. So I'm looking at my switches. I'm looking about how I want to do this, right? Because I can also bind, and you can, the nice thing about SPAD 2 is I can, and I know Microsoft Flight Simulator can sort of do it too. I can bind all of these lights to one switch if I wanted to. Obviously, you wouldn't want to do that. I can't think of a single reason why that would ever be beneficial, but you can do that. So what we're going to do is I'm going to find a switch. I think we're going to go up to... Let me think about how I want to do this for a second. I think I want to use the combat ready panel. And let me think about here. So if I wanted to do nav lights, then strobe lights. This is a rotary that I'm looking at right now. These are all on the same dial. But so if we want to do lights off, nav, strobe in replacement of the beacon light. This aircraft doesn't have a beacon light. Taxi light, landing lights. Nope, that would leave the pulse light out. So we're not going to use that one. Maybe this one here. We could do, again, nav, strobe, taxi, landing, and pulse. And that would still leave us a couple of extra switches. I'm not sure what I would do with those, but we'll figure that out later. Let's go ahead and use that one. We'll use that one for now. Oh, you know what? Actually, this is kind of cool. Maybe we'll do these. Nav. Taxi. Or is here? Nav, strobe, taxi, landing, pulse. Perfect. I got 5 lights. I got 5 buttons. We're going to use it. These are push buttons, so we're going to be doing toggle for these, right? So here we go. So this one here, let the games begin. We're going to do push buttons for here. I'm going to do add event, button pressed, add action, send simulation event. So this is going to be the Sim Connect portion. We're going to be using Sim Connect a lot. And here we want nav, I believe it's underscore lights. Now you guys can see you have a couple different options here. If you are using a 2-position switch, in the first position, you would want nav lights on. In the second position, you would put nav lights off. All right. So we're doing a toggle because this is a push button that I'm using. Okay. I'm not actually using a toggle switch on these. I'm using, I'm not using a toggle switch. I'm using a push button. So we want toggle as the activity. And then we're just going to hit OK and OK. And I'm just going to work my way down here and then we'll test all the lights. So this one here is going to be strobe. Because, again, we're using that in replacement of a beacon light. Not all places require it. Some people don't do it. Oops. But it definitely helps. And, again, we're looking for beacon, toggle beacon lights. There it is. Most of these should all be good to go. And then, let's see, what are we looking for now? Taxi. And again, toggle taxi lights, because there's a push button. Then we're going to look for landing. And if you ever have all this crazy stuff, you can go Sim Connect, filter things down, landing lights, toggle. And then finally, the pulse lights. Pulse lights, you'll typically turn them off. Either above 10,000 feet or like when you get to transition altitude, depending on, again, the scenario and where you're at. What the pulse lights do is the landing lights are required. They wig-wag the landing lights, cause the landing lights to flicker on and off, on and off, on and off, left, right, left, right. So if we look for pulse, we're not going to find anything, all right? Longitude pulse lights, but that's not what you want, okay? So what we want to do is we can actually go to our cheat sheet here, find the lights, and check this out. Pulse light. Use native binding for recognition lights. So we're going to be using Recog. And we're going to find Sim Connect, toggle recognition lights. And let's hit save. And let me get you guys on the game. There we go. And let's check it out. There's nav. Oh, I think I busted the strobe light. All right, so my strobe light isn't working. Taxi light works, landing light works, pulse light works. We got to find out why our strobe light isn't working. So let's go do that real quick. Let's fix it. Find out what's wrong. Oh, that would be why. I selected the wrong thing. So we're going to delete that. Add event. And this time, let's type the right word. It's because I was thinking beacon lights, because that's why we were doing the strobes. There we go. Strobe lights. And I'll just test that off screen. Yes, it works. Okay? All right. So there is simple key bindings. Now we're going to do things. Let's do a few others that are the simple stuff like the landing gear. Let's come down the takeoff panel. Here's my landing gear switch. These 3. It's a 3-position lever, which is actually really handy for things like the 737. But let's just go and do a couple more. Again, this stuff is very easy. Typically, you can find everything in Sim Connect. Gear down. Oh, damn. I had that reversed. So we can come back in here if you need to edit an event. We're going to highlight where it says gear down and change that to gear up. And click on this one. And there's gear down. And you can test it. Ain't going to hurt anything. Yep, it works inside the sim. And what we're going to do, guys, as we get all this stuff mapped out, we're going to go through and test it all. So it should be a lot of fun. Okay, so we have our lights bound. We have our landing gear bound. Let's get into LVARs. We're going to do LVARs, and then we will do the axis. All right, so now we're going to get into LVAR support. LVAR, like I said, are basically key commands that or executions that can be done from behind the scenes, and you need something like Spad.Next or Axis and O's in order to be able to take advantage of them. Things like, if we go into the sim for a minute, again, let me do this. Things like the crash bar, the source selector, the generator switch, starter, ignition. A lot of these things cannot be accessed inside the simulator. You actually have to use something like SPAD in order to do this, which is why we're doing this today. So we're going to map right now. We're going to use the crash bar. We're going to do our source selector. We're going to do the generator, starter, and ignition. We're going to do all of that right now, and then come in here and test. So let's get after it. So coming back to our setup here. If we come up here, you guys can see here's all of our stuff again. And you don't have to have this screen, by the way. I'll show you guys how we'll find each of these. But you have the crash bar, there's the source switch, generator, main generator reset if you want to use that, the standby selection, all this stuff. Starter, ignition switch, it's all there. All right. Now, you can see some of them are, say, the BKSQ for black square. That means black square is who actually implemented these LVARs. And the other LVAR existed already, but again, we have to use something else to access it. So let's get after this. So first, I'm going to find the switches that I want. So we're going to use 21 and 20 as our crash bar. So I'm going to go to 20 here. This is going to be crash bar up. Button pressed. We're going to do add action, change data value. And then here, we're just going to select LVAR. And I'm just going to start typing crash. And there it is, crash bar. Now, you can see it has a value of 0. 0 indicates down or off, depending on what we're dealing with. 1 will be up in our case, or on. If you have a 3-position switch like the ignition, it will be 0 for off, 1 for auto, 2 for on. Okay, so since we're done with the crash bar, and this is crash bar up, I believe, is what we decided. We're going to use 1, hit OK. And then on 21, we're going to rinse and repeat, but we're going to leave it at 0, which is the default value. Change data value. And the other cool thing is SPAD, like I said, always remembers your previous selection. 0 is already set. We're going to hit OK, OK again, and let's move forward. Next thing, source selector. So we're going to do 19 and 18, 18 for on. So here, I'm going to do change data value, and we're going to look for source. Select LVAR and black square source switch. All right, and we're gonna do that again. And remember, we want this one. This is another 3-position switch. You technically have off, battery, and GPU or ground power unit. I just want battery. You start the TBM fast enough that you don't. I can't think of us ever needing the GPU. And if I ever needed it, I would just manually go up with a mouse and trigger it. But so I want 1 for battery. And then here we're going to go to 19. Leave it at 0. And there we go. And next is the generator. And again, same thing with the generator. It has off, main, and standby. I only want off and main is what I'm going to map. So we're going to be using 22 and 23. 22 being for main. Change data value. And again, just start typing generator. And there it is, black square generator switch. And this one we're going to want 1. And for 23, leave it at the default 0. Okay, next we have the ignition switch is what I'm going to be using next. Ignition and the starter switch. So ignition, I do have a 3-position switch. There are, in startup, for example, you want auto or on. I usually flip it to on for startup and then flip it down to auto. So I'm going to be doing all 3 for this one. So here's our switches. Starting with 9 is going to be the on position. Change data value again. Looking only at LVARs, and we want ignition. There it is, black square ignition switch. And like I said, this is a 3-position switch, so I want 2. That's going to be the on position. I believe it's 10 that I want. Yep. This one's going to be 1. This will be the auto position. And then finally on 11, we're going to leave it at the default 0. Oh, Microsoft, go away. And we're going to hit save. Okay, and now let's go into the sim and test all these out. Oh, wait, we need the starter. So that's going to be 7 and 8. So 8. Again, going to LVAR. Black square starter switch. And this one I'm going to leave it at 0 because we currently have the off position selected. 7 should be on. So we're going to go to 1. Okay. And let's go check these out. So here we go. First crash bar up. Battery on. Generator. Ignition to on. And if we wanted the starter, but we're actually going to turn that off for now because we don't have our condition lever set up. Turn the ignition off. There's generator off. Source off. Crash bar down. Okay. Really awesome stuff. And it saves so much time during startup. And where these things really shine too, guys, is especially for VR users. The less you have to use the mouse is even more clunky in VR than it is in 2D. Like I hate the mouse in VR. So let's go ahead and go back to work. Next, we will take a look at axis binding as well as axis with LVARs. So we're going to split an axis as well. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that. Okay, so our next step here is we're going to bind the power lever. We're also going to set up the reverse axis as well. We're going to do our RPM, and we're going to do the condition lever. The condition lever for certain aircraft will work using the mixture binding. However, there are many aircraft, like the TBM 850 here, as well as the SimWorks Studios PC-12, where you need the LVARs in order to bind the condition lever correctly. The other thing that we're going to do today is the TBM 850 has 850 mode above the flap switch. So you have your flap axis, but there's also the 850 mode, which also requires an LVAR configuration. And so we're going to split the flap axis up between accessing the different flap positions, as well as at the top of the axis, we're going to have it trigger and turn off the 850 mode. So stick around, guys. This is going to be a good one. So let's go ahead and get back into our configuration. And let's get some work going. So first, let's find the throttle. There we go. So this is going to be our pitch axis, propeller pitch, and this is very simple. Throttle and pitch are pretty easy. Standard axis event, and we're going to find propeller pitch. Push it all the way forward. Select engine 1. Max pitch. Now, you can see it doesn't go all the way back, and that's because I have a detent here, and I'm going to take advantage of that in a minute. Okay, but you can see there it is at 0. I have a detent, a physical detent that stops the throttles there, and that's going to come in handy in a minute. So this is actually where I want my minimum pitch to be, and we're going to hit OK. And then for the throttle, I'm going to do the same thing, but remember that the TBM 850, much like the PC-12, has a reverse prop, and this is where we're going to take advantage of that detent section. So I'm going to go to Add Event, Axis Value Change, Add Action, Standard Axis Event, and Throttle with Reverser. Okay, and we're going to do engine 1 again. And by the way, if you had multiple engines on a single axis, you would just check the appropriate engines. So if you wanted dual engine on one axis, you would just turn it on. So full thrust, set, idle thrust to the detent, and full reverse. Now I'm going to pull it all the way back, and there we go. And hit OK. Take that out of the detent. And now, for this last one, this is where this gets fun. This is the condition lever, okay? So this is just another axis. It's a slider that I have on the CM3. It's on the far right of it. If you guys want to look at a picture, Virpil CM3 throttle, little black handle on the far right of it. That's what I'm going to use as my condition lever. So this gets a little bit trickier. So to bind the condition lever, we're going to go into Axis Value, Custom Axis Event. We're going to use range definition. Yes. Now, this is where we're going to split the axis up into 3 parts. Okay. So I want for cutoff, obviously from here, I'm going to move it up just a little bit, just like that. Set, and one-time event. I want that to be yes. What that does is anytime that the axis is in this range, the button that I assign or the command that I assign will only trigger once instead of repeating it over and over and over and over again. Okay, so now we're going to go to Browse. It's going to be an LVAR again. So we're going to go Data Definitions, LVAR, and we're going to find Condition. And there it is, black square condition lever. And we do want it at 0 because that is the cutoff position. So we're going to hit OK. Now, I'm going to go back into the same process. And you can honestly probably do it from all in the same window, but we have to redefine the axis event. So I like to do it one at a time. So now I'm going to move it forward a bit, more towards the center. Hit set from here, move it forward a little bit more. To here, only activate once. Browse. Condition lever is already highlighted. And I'm going to set it to 1. This is going to be low idle. And then finally, we're going to do the high idle. Turn that on 1 time from about there to there. Browse again. And this will be what? 2, right? For high idle. And save. And now, let's go check everything out. So, here is our propeller pitch. Here's our throttle. There's the throttle at the idle position, the detents. If I want full reverse, up over the gate, full reverse. Back into the idle position, good to go. Now the cool one that I really love doing is the cutoff lever. Here's our cutoff or our condition lever and cutoff. There's low idle, high idle, back to low, and in cutoff. Now let's do the flap lever with the split axis. Okay, so to do the axis with a split button, so essentially what we're doing here is we're going to take about 80% of the axis that I'm going to use to control the flaps. The last 20% or so, give or take, is going to control the 850 mode both in and out of 850 mode. So let's get back into our configuration so I can show you guys how to do that. So for this, I'm going to go back to my wind wing takeoff panel because I'm going to use a slider right here. Again, if you guys look up wind wing takeoff panel. Now, I have the legacy version. There is a new release of the takeoff and combat panels that are slightly different. But on the legacy panel, which unfortunately are now deprecated, there is a slider on the far right of it that just goes up and down. It's an axis. Okay? So, we're going to use this one here. And let us begin. This part gets pretty cool. So first, the flap part is easy. We're going to go add action, standard axis, flaps with auto detent. This is really cool. Even on the Boeing 737, something that has, multiple flap detents, right? It's got a ton of them. You can do flap auto detent, and what Spad will automatically do is break up that axis, whatever axis range you define, to evenly split up the detents. So in our case, we're going to go auto detent. Now remember I said I don't want to use all of it. Now this is the lever in the full down position. So I want this to be landing flaps, right? And then this range here is what we're going to save for our LVAR command. Okay, so I'm going to go more like from, well, let's do full down. And then full up, maybe something like here. Okay? And we're going to hit set. Now, let's go back in there for a second because I want to take note of this number here, 18,501. Okay, that is the range that I want to stay above for my LVAR commands for the 850 mode. Okay, so now we're going to go OK. Now we're going to come back into it and do another custom event. Add action, custom axis event, staying in that range that we just talked about. Range definition is yes. From, set it from here. And we're going to go, and actually, you know what I'm going to do? Actually, this works. We're going to leave it from here, and we're going to first set the out of 850 mode. So I want to disable 850 mode in this first range. I'm going to go a little further. Doesn't have to be a lot, but there's a reason why, and I'll explain it later. So we're going to hit set, go to browse, and again, this part gets really cool. LVAR, just type 850. And we want 0 here. We want it to be out of 850 mode in this range. And then I'm going to go back to add event, axis value change, custom axis, not touching the axis yet. Now I'm going to move it slightly forward again, maybe to like there, okay? And we're going to do another range event, set from here all the way up, one time. And I need to go back and change that because I don't think I hit one time on the previous. Browse, 850 mode, and 1 to turn 850 mode on. Now, why did technically, okay, when we come out of 850 mode, okay, if we wanted, if I didn't put the 0 in here, okay, let me double check that by the way, because I really don't think I did not. If I didn't put this in here, okay, if I didn't tell it at a specific range to come out of 850 mode, technically going into the flaps takeoff or up position will also do the same thing. But what I have found in the past, if I don't tell it at a certain point to come out of 850 mode, what I found was happening is, let me go into the sim for a second to show you guys. What I found was happening is I would have to pull the flap lever down to the takeoff position. It would come out of 850, go to takeoff, and then I'd have to move it back up a little bit to go into the up position. Where the way that I just showed you, it's going to actually move smoothly in and out, which we can actually test right now. So there's flaps landing, takeoff, up, that's flaps up. 850 mode. Now remember, here's where I come out of 850 mode. See, I can easily come in and out of 850 mode without going down to the flaps takeoff. And what if I did not put the 850 mode 0, if I did not put that command in there, what would happen is I'd come down and it would go all the way down to takeoff, and then I'd have to come back up. Okay, so it would remove it, but I don't want the flaps to actuate when I'm coming out of 850 mode because we want the aircraft to make sure we're at the right speed, right? We want to make sure we're coming down. Okay, but now we have that perfect. So when I'm coming out of takeoff, for those of you who don't know, the TBM 850 is not rated to take off at 850 horsepower. It's based on the TBM 700. TBM 700 has 700 horsepower. The 850, take a guess, has 850 horsepower. So at takeoff, you're limited to 700 horsepower. So we set our take-up flaps, we take off, okay? Once you're airborne and you've reached flap retraction speed, about 120 knots or so, we'll go into flaps up. Once you have verified that your flaps are up, according to the POH, in order to not risk damaging the flight surfaces, you probably wouldn't, but you don't want to risk it. Once the flaps are fully retracted, then you go to 850 mode. Same thing when you're coming back down, you're getting ready to land, you're coming on approach, you slow the aircraft down, come out of 850 mode, let it get to appropriate flap speeds, and then you can work your way down the notches. So this works really well. So that's how you split an axis between axis and button commands. I hope that helped. I hope you guys really enjoyed that. This is one of the cooler features that I really enjoy about this software. All right, so next thing I'm going to show you guys is trim configuration. We have a couple of different ways to handle trim. Okay, now I have an axis, And the reason why I'm specifying an axis, that I have an axis, is the Gear Falcon trim wheel. And the reason why I specify that is because, for example, the trim wheel on the Bravo throttle quadrant that everybody loves so much is not an axis. It's actually triggering a button both directions. Okay, much like if we go back to my combat panel here, or let's see here, let's go to the combat panel so you guys can see it. I have a couple of rotaries on here, but you can see they're actually triggering buttons which way I turn it. If I turn it to the left, it triggers 54. If I turn it to the right, it triggers 55. The Bravo throttle quadrant is the same way, where the Gear Falcon is an actual slider. It's an axis, okay? So you want to make sure that you understand what your particular piece of hardware is doing. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to actually take a look at both. I'm going to set up the trim wheel from Gear Falcon on an axis, and we're also going to set up the electronic trim and a couple of different ways that you guys can do that to really refine how quickly or how slowly the trim will respond for you guys. So let's go ahead and get into that now. So I'm going to disable that. Let's get OBS out of our way again, and let's save our profile so I don't lose any data. And let's start with the trim wheel. The trim wheel is the easiest, right? So we're going to come over here. We're going to go to Add Axis Event, Axis Value Changed, Add Action, Send Simulation Event. Oh, not Send Simulation Event. I lied. Standard Axis, and there should be Elevator Trim already. There it is, Elevator Trim. And this part couldn't be any easier. Now, I actually have physical lines identifying the different positions on the Gear Falcon trim wheel. So this is neutral, so I'm going to go ahead and set that now. Full up. I'm just going to follow my detents, or my notches, I should say, my lines. Again, if you guys are interested, Google the Gear Falcon trim wheel. You'll see what I'm talking about. I'm going to set that here. I guess I could have gone down to 0. Oh, actually, it won't go down to 0. One's where it's stopping. Interesting. Okay, now we're going to come up, and I'm going to go to the full up position. Again, just watching my lines. Anyone who's ever trimming this much, you should be using your flight stick or the yoke. There we go. I'm going to set and hit OK. So that part, done. Easy. Right? The Gear Falcon trim wheel is easy. I am literally already watching, although oh yeah, it is up. The trim isn't quite right according to this axis, but that's okay. And I actually think it's inverted. It is inverted. So let me do that real quick and I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. Let's turn this on. So trim wheel up. You guys can see that. If I'm rolling my trim wheel, my physical trim wheel, I am rolling forward. So I actually want this inverted. Okay, so it's in the wrong direction. So it works just fine, but it's not where I want it. So let's get rid of game capture. Let's hide this again. And let's just go into the axis, our setup here. And I believe, yep, there's an invert. And now it's working just fine. I'm not going to worry about showing you guys the same. You guys have seen all this stuff plenty of times. But bottom line is, now it works. Okay? So now let's take a look at the electronic trim, because that's where things get a bit different. Still easy, but time consuming. So we're going to go to our flight stick now. All right. And those are already, I'm not going to bind these in here. They're already bound in the sim. And that was because of an issue with the PC-12, which there's also LVAR command for that. The ailerons weren't working with Spad, but they have resolved that. But I just left it. Right now, my flight stick is bound inside the simulator, so I'm not worried about those two axes. All right, but we need to bind our trim. And so I'm going to use this hat wheel, or this trim hat. And let's begin. So north press. So this is going to be forward, right? So we want this for nose down. We're going to add action, send simulation event. I'm going to look for trim again. and elevator trim down. Now watch, here's where this gets cool. This is button pressed. Remember when we selected our button, we said when button is pressed. So I can press it right now and hold it, but it's only going to trigger the action that I give it once. Okay, no matter how long I hold it right now, it will send the trim command once. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a value of how much trim I want it to add. So I'm going to go in the static value. I'm going to hit 0.002. Okay, I know that sounds super low. Trust me, it's not. And we're going to hit OK. And then I'm going to come back in here, go north button held. We're going to do the same thing. Change data value. Nope, not change data value. I lied. Send simulation event. Trim down. On this one, I'm going to do 0.001. I want it to do less trim, basically slow down how much trim that it's going to put in. The higher the number, the more trim you're going to get. And the reason why I want to do this is because now I'm holding it and it's going to be constant. It's going to constantly repeat that command. And you guys can tweak these to your liking, whatever you like. Increase the number if you want it to trim faster. Decrease the number if you want it to trim slower. Okay, so we're going to hit OK. Let me save. And let's go ahead and go back into the sim, so you guys can see this in action. So here is the electronic trim. If I just tap it, you see what it's doing. Okay, that's still quite a bit of trim. Look how fast the indicator's moving on the right. We're getting into that green box pretty quick. So this is nice if you just want to tweak it just a little bit, right? But if I want a lot of trim, if I hold the button, what a hold does is any depression that maintains longer than half a second, you go into the hold command. So now I'm going to press it and hold it. You're going to see it trigger once and then go faster. Here we go. And there we go. Okay. And you guys can see what I was saying. At 0.001, this is how fast it's moving. All right. So I'm going to set the rest of those up. We're going to do, it's the same process for the aileron trim if you want to do that. It's the same process for the rudder trim if you want to do that. So I'm going to set the rest of the, I'm going to set my ailerons and I'm going to set my up on the elevator, and then I'll come back to you guys. All right, so now that we've got all that mapped, there's our elevator control. You can see the aileron slowly moving there. It's good stuff. The other thing I'll show you guys that's really cool is usually there is a trim reset. So let's get this out of the way and let's find our button. That's 3. So this is a push button on the center of the trim hat that I'm using. Send simulation event, and let's look for reset. Go to Sim Connect. There's the rotor trim resets. I thought there was one for... Let me just look for trim again. Here's what we can do. So it depends on what it is, but check this out. We're going to go to elevator trim set. This is how I did it. And I'm going to set 0. And I'm going to add an action here that's going to reset all of my trims. Let's find the aileron trim. Aileron trim set. And I'm going to type 0 again. And now if we go back into the sim, let's set some crazy trims here. And let's push that button, and boom, trim's back to 0. So really slick way to handle your trims as well. If you don't feel like running the trim all the way through, you can just very quickly reset that trim configuration back to 0 and then trim out the aircraft as desired. So it makes it really, really awesome. All right, so that pretty much solves the trim here, guys, at this point. There's a few other things that we have to do now. Next thing would be set the fuel selectors. We need the fuel selector to go from manual to audio. Audio, nice. And actually, I should have turned the auxiliary boost pumps on as well. So let's get those set up next. All right, so let's get out of the game. And let's get into setting up our fuel. Got my auxiliary. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to do these two for my auxiliary boost pumps. Okay, so we're going to come down to here. And let's go back to our cheat sheet here. I know it's in here. And there should be a fuel boost pump switch. There it is. Fuel boost pump and the auto fuel selector switch. The only one that isn't in here, I'm kind of bummed out about, is the shift button. But if need be, you know, you can always use the mouse again. It's pretty rare that you need to, or you can just use the mouse and push the button. But I haven't found the shift yet. But trust me, we're on the hunt. So let's keep on going here. And let's see what we got. So fuel boost pump switch is a black square one. So here we go again. So this is going to be off. Oops. Black square fuel pump switch. 0 is what we want. It's in the off position. Moving to next. You guys should be getting the hint of this by now, so I'm just zooming through now. Moving to the next one. And this will be what? Position 2, right? 'Cause it's 3-position switch. Okay, and then now we need the fuel selector. So I think we'll use these two. 29 should be, yep, add event. Oh, nope, LVAR. And let's just do this, because we know what's in there. Or am I wrong? Oh, it is not a black square. Auto fuel selector switch. There it is. And this is only 2 position, manual and automatic. This is the up position, so I want it to be automatic. And I believe 31, yep. Nope, 0. Sorry, 0. 0 is what I want. All right. And let's get in there and test. Monitoring the auxiliary boost pumps. So that's off, on, auto. Cool. And the fuel shift. Or not fuel shift, fuel selection. There's auto, manual, auto. Boom. Cakewalk, guys, cakewalk. So let's see what we got next. We're going to work on master caution, master warning at the very end. They're kind of tricky. Sometimes I get them to work, sometimes I can't. We have our environmental control panel. Inertial separator, that's a big one. Let's do the inertial separator and the parking brake. Let's get those two done. Actually, you know what? Before we worry about that, the next step would be turning our gyros, RMI, and ADI. These were interesting, so stick around for this. These are called A events. All right, so to handle the A events, this one actually I just learned yesterday. These are really cool. Those 4 switches that we just talked about. There's the gyro switch, the RMI, ADI2, HSI2 switch that are above the overhead panel. These were a pain for me to find, but they're actually not too bad once you understand it. So what we're interested in is the circuit switch on. That's the first part of this command we're looking for. And 57. This is the indicator. 58, 59, 60, right? So let's get into this. So what I'm going to do is figure out where I want these. Let's do... I could put these all on one switch if I wanted, or I could break them up. Let's do a combination. Let's just do them all on one switch so you guys can see that here. What is on here? Do I have anything on here yet? I didn't think so. Okay, so let's do this. We're going to put these all on here. This is actually a 3-position switch, but, you know, we don't care, right? So let's do this. We're going to go add event. I'm going to show you guys a button combination. Yeah. We're going to go button pressed, add action. This is actually a or it is a change data value. Sorry. Don't listen to me. And we're going to look for circuit switch on. There we go. Circuit switch on is what we're looking for. So that's MSFS. It's an MSFS specific event. And remember our numbers. Let me pull those up here, get them a bit higher. There we go. 57 through 60. So there's 57. And I believe we selected the on position. I really hope I did. So let's go ahead and set 1 for a second just so I can verify I'm on the right button. I think I did. No, this is the off position. So we'll come in here. That's all right. We'll just change that back to 0 since we're working on that. And then we're going to stay in this window. And we're just going to do send simulation event. I did it wrong again. We're going to do change data value. Find 58 and hit OK because it's already 0. Add action, change data value. Add 59. Add action, change data value. And add... Oh, wait, we got 57, 58, 59. Oh, yeah, we need to add 60. Now it is showing... There it goes. Let me make sure that the sim is actually showing... Nope, the gyro, I did turn it on. Okay, that makes sense. All right, so I'm just going to come back over here. There we go. All right, so that's going to turn everything off. Now let's go to our button that turns everything on. And we're just going to rinse and repeat, but set the 1. So 57. 58. 59. And finally, last but not least, 60. And now when we go into the sim, there they go. So that's how you handle A events as well as button combinations. Okay, so we flip those on. You can see our ADI comes on, all that good stuff. And now we need our FS master, autopilot and trims, and the radio master. These are the 3 that I want to map next, okay? Because it's all part of the startup is the way I'm looking at this. Now, I have another 3-position switch. And actually, you know what I think we'll do is on this last switch, because we have one more switch, remember, on the one that we just used, I have one more button that's free. I think we'll do the FS Master on that. Just make it all one big package. So let's pause the sim. And let's add. So I'm going to come back down to the switch I was just messing with. There we go. The FS Master here. Let's look at our cheat sheet. Oh, let me get that out of the way. I know I saw it. FS power switch. There it is. And it is an LVAR. Okay. So we're going to go to LVAR. And we're looking for FS power switch. Now, in this position, we're going to be on. Now, check this out. What we're going to do to turn it off is we're going to come back down to 30, where we have all of our other 4 switches turned on. We're going to turn the FS off. And really the only reason why I broke it up is because it's cool to flip the switches like that. That's really it. And we're just going to leave it at 0 because we want it turned off. Okay. But what will happen is when we flip the switch down, FS will turn off, but the other 4 will stay on. So let's go into the sim, check it out. All right, so coming in here, let's make sure my gyros and everything are still on. Yep. So there's the FS master on. There's the FS master off, but all this stuff stays on. But now we can, there's the gyros on. You can see them triggering over here. See the flag going away. And there's our FS on. All right. So now let's, you guys have pretty much got the gist of it. So what I'm going to do now is off screen, I'm going to go and bind the inertial separator. I'm going to bind the parking brake. The parking brake, I'm going to do the same thing like we did. Actually, the parking brake, let me show you because I'm going to do an axis bind with it as well. So let me show you the parking brake and then everything else we'll walk through. Or I'll tell you what I'm going to do off screen. All right, so the parking brake you would think would be pretty easy. And depending on how you map it, it can be. But I'm using, again, an axis. This is just to the left of the landing gear handle. So it makes more sense to me to have, just like it is in the aircraft, have the parking brake near the landing gear handle. So I'm going to be using this axis here. I want this position to be parking brake on and this one to be off. Now, there is a caveat to that, which I'll explain if it happens. But let's see here. Let's go in here. We're going to go add event. I'm going to go axis value changed. We're going to do a custom axis event, range, and I'm going to do set from here. Okay, so to set the parking brake, we're going to go sim connect. And parking brake position or parking brake set. I've had both work. I've had some that just gives me hell, to be honest with you. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go try the parking brake indicator. And I want this to be 1 as it is. And then we're going to set another custom event. Oops. And now we're going to go the other direction. And you know what else I forgot to do was trigger that 1 time. So we'll have to make sure to do that as well. We'll see if this way works, because when it works... Oh, no, I want that to be 0. This way seems to be better. I need to come back to this one and tell it 1 time. And let me see if this works in the sim before I bother you guys with it. Okay, and that worked just fine. Give me a second. Let me show you guys. Okay, so parking brake off, parking brake on. If you ever have it do the opposite, okay? If you ever have it in the down position, but your parking brake like goes to off, simply bring your mouse over and force it to the position you want. And then after that, it should do it as desired. Now mine just happened to work like this without issue. But anyway, so there's the parking brake on an axis. Easily solved, right? All right, guys. So what I'm going to do off screen, because everything else is pretty much the same process from here. I'm going to do the inertial separator. That's going to be an LVAR event from the black square TBM. Same thing with autopilot trim, master radios, and I'm also going to do our environmental control system over here. Environment control system, I'm going to do the bleed, the air conditioning, and fan flow switches is what I'm going to work on. So I will catch you guys when I'm done there. You guys can see it all in action. And that should be enough to do a complete startup and hopefully show you guys, at the very least, the beginnings of advantages of doing this. And then we will end the video by showing you how to set up the barometer, or altimeter, excuse me. All right, guys. So we are back. And as you guys can see, I have all of my switches mapped. So there's the fan flow, air conditioning system, and bleed switch. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do the pressurization goal, so our target pressurization, and we're going to do the altimeter setting. So check it out. This one is actually a lot of fun. So I want you guys to stay with me on both of these, because if you miss a part of this, you won't get the same results. Okay, so I'm going to try to zip through these quickly, so that way I don't bore you guys. So let's get this out of the way. Let me pause the sim because I'm sure you guys can hear it. And let's get after it. So first, I have a couple of rotary dials that, just like we talked about before, some knobs that actually trigger buttons. Turn it right and it triggers button 52. Turn it left and it triggers 51. So we're going to set this as our pressurization goal. Go to add event, button pressed, add action, change data value, just an LVAR, just like we did before. Find the LVAR, which as you guys can see here, I actually just copied this and pasted it in the search box. So if we do that, okay. And then we're going to come in here and we're going to change set to increment. I turn it to the right. I want the number to climb. Now, you don't want to put like 1 like we talked about before, or it's going to move 1 foot at a time. Okay, so we want something better than that. Now, usually we work in what? Increments of 100. But if you want, you can bring it down to like 50. For the time being, I'm going to go ahead and set mine to 50 actually. I'm going to leave it at 50. That's a good one. Leave it at 50. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to go to 51. Add event, button pressed, add action, change data value. And then we're going to go down to the same one. And this time we're going to go decrement 50 as well. Hit OK, OK, and save. Now we're going to come into our sim. And check this out. So setting our target altitude. Now with this particular knob, the way it kind of works is you want to go kind of slowly, because again, it's just repeating a button. But I'm also going to try something while I have you guys. Let's test something together, because that's still kind of clunky. I mean, it works, but I have to turn it 1 notch at a time. So what I'm seeing here, let me show you what I'm seeing in Spad. What I'm seeing, Moneypenny. What I'm seeing in Spad is, if you guys watch the button, if I go slow, it does just fine. But if I turn it fast, look, it's doing a hold. So let's use that to our advantage. I want to see if that actually registers as a hold. This is completely test. I've never done this before. So we're going to add event, button held, add action, change data value. Now, I'm going to do the same thing. This is increment, I believe, but I'm going to take this down to like 20 because I want to see something. Okay, so this should be, oh, no, I need to change that to decrement. Let's do that. There we go. And let's go over to 52 and then let's add it in. I just realized I hit button pressed. So let's get it right here. Button held. And again, we're going to go now increment. And we're going to keep it at 20. And let's see what happens now. I am super curious about this one. I have no idea how this is going to turn out. Because I'm technically not holding a button. I'm just repeating it super fast. So let's see what happens. So first we have our tick, tick, tick. But if I turn it fast, yeah. But the catch there is that until it completed all of the things that I did, it didn't stop. So I'm going to try to quickly move it to 8,000 and see how quickly we can get it there. So I'm going to turn it. So I had to turn it back the other direction. Let's try this again. I'm turning it. Hands are off of it. Yeah, it's going to go all the way down. Okay, so here's an idea. So if I want to go to 9,000 again, I'm going to turn it right. And now I'm going to start turning left. And that seemed to work. Okay, so I have to back it up a bit. But that is a heck of a lot easier, than trying to use the mouse wheel while flying, while the aircraft is moving, while you're in VR, whatever it may be, and keeping it on here and changing your camera views. At least now we can come up here. Oops. I can sort of just get the look, especially if I have a general idea of where I'm going. I know I want to get down to, 1,500 feet. I can do that. And at 2, I start turning it right. Actually, that worked out pretty good. That is a heck of a lot easier. So that's still better than anything by far that we've seen before. Cool. I actually really enjoyed that. That was a fun thing to learn. So now let's do the altimeter. I don't know why I keep calling it that. Setting the barometric pressure. Let's set the altimeter. That's actually pretty easy, but there is a caveat and a tip to that as well. So let's get out of the sim. Let's get rid of Spad. Give me just a second here, guys. All right. And let's look here. So we have this one is to the right. This is to the left. It's a same kind of knob that we just used for pressurization. There's a second one right below it. And then also has a push button. We're going to use the push button. So check that out first. So first thing that we're going to do is we want to make sure that your altimeter is currently inside the plane. Okay, let me get back to the simulator for a second. Inside the plane, make sure your altimeter is set to the standard 29902. There is a reason for this, so stay with me on this. Make sure it says 29902. You want to make sure it's at default. If you are in an area and you want to make sure it's 100% accurate, then what I'd recommend you guys doing is going to your weather, turn live weather off. Okay, you can see the altimeter changed, and make sure that it shows 29902. You can even hit the B key to verify, okay? But this is critical. Make sure you're on it. I promise that's the last time, but it is crucial. And here's why. So let's get rid of the sim. Let's get rid of this. Let's find our button again, or our knob. We're going to come over here, and we're actually going to start with this guy. This is our push. What we want is this to be our standard pressure button. We want it to set 29902 when we go into it. And here's how we're going to do it to make it exact. You guys are going to trip out when you see what this number looks like in here. Add action. We are going to change data value. Sim connect. We're going to type Colesman, or there it is. Okay, and look at this number. This is the number that we need to set. And if you're using millibars, it doesn't have one. But there is the standard pressure inside the sim. So I'm going to take a screenshot of this. I don't know if you guys can see me doing that or not, but there's my screenshot of it. And now we're going to go Sim Connect setting, because notice that value goes away. We want set, and now we're going to type the 299.902, and it was 13428497314. Okay, I'm going to hit OK. All right, and then now the rest of it's easy. Let's get rid of that. So 55, I believe, is the knob turned to the right. We're going to go button pressed, add action, send simulation event. Colesman increase. And I don't even think that we need anything there if memory serves. I think that we just need to select it. Add event, button pressed. Add action, send simulation event. Colesman decrease. Hit OK, hit OK, hit OK. Hit save. Let's go back to our sim. Let's increase our altimeter. Okay. And again, we're running into the same thing. So I think we're going to try that hold trick with this again. Because if I turn it real slow, it works just fine. But we want to speed that up a bit. And then if I push our button to set it back to standard, there we go. So really slick, you guys. A really good way to do this. Let's try to fix, just like we did with the pressurization, the ability to turn the knob quickly. Okay. This might be a little bit different. So let's see what we can do here. So we're going to do the same thing that we did before over here. Let me get OBS out of the way. We're going to go to 55. These are the only two that we have to mess with here. But I'm actually just going to try button held and doing the same event. I'm going to see what happens when we do that. I don't think we need a static number in there. Dang it, I keep hitting the wrong one. All right, so ticking away. Again, so let's see. Let's do something ridiculous. 2813 is what we're going to go for. Wow, I could have really spun that, huh? Oh, now we went too far. All right, so now we have an idea. And I did the same thing we did before. I kept reversing the direction to sort of stop it. But now let's go to like 3015. Let's see how quickly we can get there. I'm just going to keep spinning it. There's 30. Oh, went too far. But now I just start, as soon as I saw that we were going to pass it, I just turned it the other direction. That's not bad. And then back to the default. Nice. All right, guys, so I'm going to do one final startup of the aircraft, getting everything to where it currently is. I'm not going to worry about pitot heat and stall heat. Master caution, master warning, I think I'm going to save for a different video because I haven't quite figured out how to get that right. I get some weird behavior. But let's go ahead. I'm going to reset all of our controls. I'm going to restart the aircraft, and let's walk through the startup. All right, guys, so we've reset the aircraft here. And now we're going to see how it all plays together. So let's just walk through starting up our aircraft. There's our crash bar. Generator's on. Let's get our lights on. Let anyone know the aircraft's getting ready to get moving here. Our axis. There we go. Propeller full pitch. And now we're going to go boost pumps to on. Ignition to on. Flip that starter up. Watching our NG. There's 13%. Low idle. There's our 53%. Going to high idle. Starter off. Boost pumps to auto. Ignition to auto. Inertial separator to on. Turn on our gyros and ADIs. The FS. Autopilot trim and radio master switch. Pressurization to auto. Air conditioning to on. Fan flow to auto. Let's find out what our weather is. No wind today. Interesting. Altimeter 3012. Oops, wrong knob. Oops, went too far. 3012. And simulating today, we'll be climbing to, I don't know. What do you guys think? Let's go to 15,000 feet. Ah, wrong one. This is actually the first time I did the pressurization switch, or pressurization. So I'm using the knob that last time I used for the altimeter. Well, let's set it for, I guess we would need it to set it for 22,000 feet. So there's 22,000. Clear our master caution, master warning. Turn our taxi light on. We're flying on down the road. We're cruising along. Okay, we're on the runway now. Turn our landing lights on. Set takeoff flaps. We've taken off. We've reached our airspeed. Flaps up. Verified our flaps are retracted. We've gone into 850 mode. And we are flying along, and all of that was done without using the mouse. The aircraft is completely ready to go. I mean, obviously we would still need our pitot install heaters, but we can probably find a switch for that. I think I've got another one left that I can use. And actually I do have another one left that I can use. So that'll take care of that. Parking brake works just fine. So that is it, you guys. I hope you guys saw the value in today's video. I hope you guys learned some really cool things that you can do. Oh, you know what? I just realized I never set the fuel to auto select. So let's do a shift there. There we go. I'm not sure why the auto select light is still active, but it is. I wonder if it's because we're in. That caution light shouldn't still be there. Forgot things like the oxygen. So there's a couple things that I still need to figure out. And the oxygen switch is in the LVARs. So I'm not sure if this is a bug or not. Because that should be for the fuel. And it's in auto select. But everything else worked perfectly. So anyways, my friends, as I said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you found it useful. I hope it gives you some new ideas on how to set up your controls, no matter whether using Axis and O's or some other program, whatever it may be. But anyway, guys, stay safe and healthy. Leave any questions, comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one.